This is Julia. This is also Julia. I don't know who the hell that is. Today we are talking about alopecia, and the reason I think this is important is because alopecia affects two of our picket fence family members.
Yes, and what alopecia is, it's a autoimmune disorder that affects basically your ability to, in this situation, grow hair, and it comes in three different stages. You've got alopecia areata, so it's patchy, alopecia totalis, where it means your head is completely devoid of hair, or universalis, where it's basically top to bottom and you have no hair. So it comes in three stages. It's very different from like pattern baldness, which I think 90% of the male population has at some point. It's one of those things that they don't really know a whole lot about, and even though like a great deal of the population has it, there's just no real reason that they can decide why it affects some people, why it doesn't affect others. It could affect somebody as young as, I've seen 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I've seen somebody get it as late as their 80s. You get complete regrowth, or you get no regrowth. You get patches, or it can come back and then 3 years later fall out. There's just no rhyme or reason. It's really kind of an unpredictable disease.
Tell us your story a little bit. When did this affect you? Do you remember going through all of this?
With me, what they think may have triggered it is actually an immigration process that we went through. We came to Canada when I was really young. I'm not going to tell you the date that we came, but we came when I was 7. And the stress of what they feel with the immigration process of leaving my family behind and coming to a whole new world, a whole new country, not knowing the language, just not knowing anything, not having any friends, that stress that embodied the 7-year-old that I was triggered my alopecia. And so when I was 7, it took about 3 months beginning to end.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, I'm kind of a rare case. I'm like in the 5% of even like the alopecia cases, where it just kind of 3 months and then it's been
really
like ever since.
So that's a lot to go through. So you came to a new country and then all of a sudden as a little girl you're losing all your hair.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And we were immigrants when we came, so we were also dirt poor.
Wow.
So it's like,
yeah.
So I came to the country, I lost all my hair, I didn't speak the language, and we didn't really have the knowledge of the medical system, and we also didn't really have money to, whether it's to buy a fancy wig or to buy a fancy hat.
Right.
It's really not a good time.
So
For the first 2 years, I would just wear little hats to school.
Oh my God, you're so cute.
It was really pathetic. Do you know that I actually don't have any photos of myself at that stage?
You don't?
Nope. There's one photo. I don't even know where it is. And frankly, the one time I did see it, I saw this photo. I'm sure it's at my dad's. I saw this photo a few years ago, and it made me physically ill.
Oh my God.
It actually
Why?
It made my stomach turn.
Fast forward now, and you're a grown woman.
I am fine now. No issues here at all.
Oh yeah, I have issues. Fast forward now, you're a grown woman.
Yes.
And you're dating.
Yes.
What's that like? How do you deal with that? And,
I always envied the people later in life that I met that were just so confident. Like they'd be like, whoosh, and they'd whip it off and they'd put on a little hat or they'd put something. I was always very protective of what I looked like. Like I would never say anything to anybody. I always found a great deal of shame actually in telling people that I had this, because I felt in some strange way that I would disappoint somebody. So this person who I was interested in dating and we would go out and all that kind of stuff, it would kill me to tell them because I didn't want to disappoint their idea of who I was, even though the idea of who I was had nothing to do with me physically, right? You can say that, but I felt like I would disappoint that person because he had this perception of who I was, and it's all fake. And it never even occurred to me that physical is really only like 10% of the person. It really is. But to me, I always thought that, as soon as I tell somebody, they're just going to be like...
And did they ever?
Never.
Did they never? No,
never.
Of course they didn't.
I know. And I mean, I'm sure I'm luckier than most. I'm sure some people had very negative reactions. I never had a negative reaction. And yet I still continue to this day, I mean, not that I'm dating, but I still continue to feel that people will have a negative reaction to me. Like, doing this is really scary for me. I remember a story somebody told me once in one of the alopecia groups. She had just gotten out of the shower and she was downstairs, and somebody, I can't remember what the situation was, but somebody was walking into her apartment, whether it was like a friend or something like that, and she was completely naked, like top to bottom. She had no hair and she had no clothes on, and she had one towel, and in that split second she had a choice what she was going to cover. And she went whoop, right over her head.
Oh my goodness. So she showed everything else, but this is what she didn't want to show.
Yes.
Wow.
So if that gives you an idea of what that would be like, and of course everybody laughed, and I'm like, that's exactly what I would do.
Really?
Yeah. And then of course I'd lie down on the floor.
How do you do that? Like, because at some point, obviously, you get to a comfort level with your husband.
Yes.
Where you
I'll let you know when that happens.
No.
I know.
Where you don't have to be covered all the time.
No.
Talk about that.
It's in stages, actually. Like, I often wear hats around the house, and really out of necessity, because it tends to get cold.
Okay.
You get cold, right? At night when you go to bed, like, the lights go off and you're like, right? And then it just kind of develops little by little. At least it does for me. It's not A to Z in like 30 seconds. It's more like A to Z in a year.
Yeah. So, my stepson, Julia's son, has alopecia. So, let's get into that a little bit. Like, when did you start to notice this with him? How did that happen?
I can tell you to the date. He was in a bathtub, and I noticed a quarter-sized patch right at the back of his head, and the world stood still. Like, it was like you have those chills, like everything just runs up you. If I had any hair, it'd be standing on end. I mean, it was like I just froze, and of course I knew exactly what it was, right? I mean, it's not like this is umpteen years ago and your parents have no idea what they're dealing with. I knew exactly. So I called in, screamed for JP, who at the time we were married, and I was just like I couldn't even, I was just like trying to, and he was like, don't worry, it's fine. And he was trying to like calm the situation. I don't know how he felt. I'm sure he felt the same way, but I think looking at me, he wasn't going to panic because one of us was already panicked. And he made the joke that, don't worry, you've got the alopecia, so it's possible that he has it, but I've got enough hair for like all of our children. So chances are he's going to be fine, right? But it kind of just progressed from there. So.
It would happen in stages, right? So like it was kind of at the back first.
Right. And at the back is the worst of it. If that's the part that's the hardest to regrow.
Then that kind of got shaved off, and then he was kind of rocking like the little ponytail for a while. And
he looked so cute in that.
I know.
He had very long hair as a kid. And at the time it was straight. It's curly now, but it was very long. And whenever he'd get a patch, we'd kind of just make the hairstyle to the patch. But then it got to the point where, oh my God, the kid looked like Gollum. Like, it was awful.
Yeah.
And
it was
it was scraggly. And we just did it over Christmas. So he went back to school in January. The little hat.
I'll never forget the moment when I was sitting next to him at dinner and the sun was coming in one side of the kitchen, and I looked over at him. This is when he was bald. And then I saw these little fuzzy hairs all growing on his head. And I turned to JP and I'm like, and I didn't want to say anything, right? And she was like, I know. And I'm like, oh my God. And then he grew his hair back.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's not without his issues. He likes it long for a very good reason. Because, you know, he's also well aware that, you know, the saying is hair today, gone tomorrow. That's what we say around here. So he's aware that at any point he can lose it again. But so far, so good.
Yeah. So, obviously, you have never had to go and get waxed.
No. What? That is awful. I don't know why have they not come like along with some of these methods?
They have sugaring. Sugaring is way easier, but you're still ripping the hair out of your skin. So you've never...
I don't understand why anybody would want to rip their hair out.
Because then it's so nice and smooth, and trust me. Most of the ladies watching will understand that bikini or that Brazilian wax, that is a whole experience.
Yeah,
that you've never had.
No, and that's okay. I'm okay to forego some. As you get older, you're like, okay, this has some upsides for sure.
Okay, so you've never experienced the feeling of that wax strip?
Nope.
Well, today is your lucky day.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Where did it go?
Are you serious? Well, oh my God, are you serious?
I'm serious.